Hello and welcome to Rise of Humanity. I am your host, Chris Karamaya, and for today's episode, I'm very pleased to be joined by my guest, Jordan Duvall. Jordan is a brand strategist and coach who helps entrepreneurs to create a soul-aligned brand vision and take their business and impact to a whole new level. Jordan brings a huge amount of knowledge and wisdom to her work with 20 years experience in the marketing and entertainment industries and is fully committed to helping people to ignite their brand vision and show up in the world in a big and impactful way. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show today, Jordan. Thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. So I'd love to start digging into your work a bit more. Could you just kind of give your view on, I mean, when you get right down to the core of it, what is branding?
Well, I really believe branding is an experience that you create. There's multiple pieces of it, and there's the brand identity. And I think that a lot of people assume that brand identity is branding. And back in the day when we used to send letters and thank you notes and had business cards, that was typically what you would do is you would go to a designer and have them do your brand identity, which would be your logo, your stationery, and maybe a business card. So I think a lot of people have that sort of antiquated view of what branding is, but it's so much more than that. It's really this, sort of essence of an experience that is built on values and, what is your unique, superpower that you bring to the world. What is your mission? What is your vision? And so it's a much grander thing. So I really believe there's this sort of like beneath the surface element to what your brand is. And then you bring that forth through that visual architecture and the messaging. And the key to really, I believe, to creating a successful brand is making sure that the external view of your brand aligns with the internal pieces that you've, done all that discovery work around.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I suppose there's definitely that tendency to see branding as an external thing. I saw one of your posts on Facebook when you talk about how branding is an inside job, and I think that's like huge. Could you kind of expand on what that means a bit?
For sure. Well, I'm a big believer that we create our own reality. And I always believe that, but life circumstances sort of really showed me how true that was, a few years ago. And, I've gotten really into personal development and studying, psychology and, manifestation and all that stuff. And so every time I plug into a book or an audio, I realize just how much bigger and grander it really goes. It's kind of like going down the rabbit hole when you go down, you create your own reality. So, I believe that whatever is external is really a mirror of our internal world. So when you get very clear, like a lot of times, people come to me and they're like, I have a hard time with, I'm not clear on exactly what I'm doing. I'm not consistent. I'm not cohesive. And typically I interpret that as there's lack of clarity and confusion inside the person, and then it's getting mirrored out into the world. So when you see someone, who's very clear on their messaging, they have a very authentic brand, I'm assuming that they've done the work and they're clear in order to be able to create that. So when you get, when you have that understanding of what you want to create with your brand, and then, depending on your skill level, whether you bring that forth yourself or you hire an expert, when it evokes that underlying, I always tell my clients, like when somebody comes to your world, you want them to feel like they've already arrived at the place that they want to go because they're in some sort of struggle or pain point and they don't believe that the solution is possible. So if you can paint that picture instantaneously through that energetic and emotional experience that they have when they, interact with your Instagram or your website or whatever sort of online, or even, 3D world experience that you have, when they can access that emotional state that they can't get to yet, that they desire, then they see it's possible and they want to work with you more. So when you do that inner work and then you align the outer visuals and then align the messaging with whatever your mission and your vision and your services are, and then you have visuals that sort of back up that messaging, it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it's like that, by doing that effectively, it kind of opens up the energy and the realization within them, and then they understand that you are the answer to the problem that they have, essentially.
Exactly. That whatever your quote unquote solution is, whether it's a product or a service or, done for you or whatever it is, that is going to be the path to where they want to go.
Yeah, awesome. So when you do this like effectively, what does like the contrast between not doing it effectively and doing it effectively, if you could just kind of illustrate that, because I think this is something, it's so powerful, and I think it's definitely something, obviously, which a lot of, and the reason you do the work you do is because people aren't fully aware of the power of it. I mean, what kind of things open up when you are successfully, powerfully branding yourself? And is it like more clients and stuff like that? What does business begin to look like from there?
I mean, honestly, I think it's just magic. I mean, like the opportunities that have opened up for me that just appear out of thin air. I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is cool. I could do more of this. This is awesome. Because, I believe that when you're not clear, or you're out of alignment, like you're doing something that you think you should do, or your messaging is not aligned with your mission or your visuals, like, and even down to your colors, like, your colors might not necessarily speak to what your actual intentions are. And so there's something amiss somewhere in the process. And so it's causing some sort of friction and resistance and energy, in that sort of invisible world. And so it's blocking opportunities, clients, finances to come through. So when you get really clear on that yourself, and one, you have to like clear the crap out of your own internal mind is like the first really important step. And then when you can do that, like I always do that first with my clients, is really like dig straight in, figure out, limiting beliefs. Like you could spend forever on those, but just, kind of give them, depending on whether they've heard of it or not, just give them an awareness of how whatever their thought structures are really creating this framework for their life. And become aware of what they are and see that there's things there that are holding them back, because ultimately our life is a blank slate and we can choose to create whatever we want. And our thoughts and beliefs kind of create like this maze that we travel through. And if we want to, end up in a different place, we need to restructure how those walls fit together. So, I want them to become aware and then give them some tools to start working through that. And, that's like a lifelong, practice every day to be growing and, expanding and pushing the boundaries. And just when you push through some limiting beliefs, new ones, then you hit like an upper limit and then other limiting beliefs come. So it's always a journey and a discovery process and continuing to challenge yourself to grow. So it's not like, it's kind of like losing weight. You're like, sweet, I like worked out, I did awesome, I lost 10 pounds. Like now I can go like rest on my laurels. And it's like, boom, it comes right back again. So, you kind of always have to keep exercising that muscle. I find that to be really key. And then it really kind of starts to strengthen your belief muscle, because if you don't believe that it's possible, then, I can teach you all the trade secrets in the world and give you all the tools and strategies. But if you don't believe it, then you will either consciously or subconsciously trip yourself up, and it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy that it won't happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's like, it just becomes so clear to me, like when you say all that, of how just in and of itself, how transformational going about starting a business is. Like you think it's like, oh, I'm just starting a business and I'm doing that because I need to make money and but really you're engaging like in a truly transformational experience, and to do it successfully you have to transform in incredible ways, really.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the moment that I discovered that I was my business. I was actually, I used to do network marketing, and I worked super hard. In network marketing, they typically like tell you what your goals are, and there's a lot of support and a lot of structure, which is awesome. And so I was, following all of those tips and advice, and things just weren't growing the way that I wanted to. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, if you like took my work and my effort and, made that actually turn into, some sort of fruition and income related success, like, why is that not aligned? And a girlfriend of mine reached out to me and she's like, oh, I'm speaking at this business event. Do you want to come? I'll give you a free ticket. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. I'm down. And so I was in my mind thinking like, oh, it must be, the email provider that I'm using, or the list service that I'm using, or, the way that I'm writing my emails. I thought it was all of these sort of external strategies or tools. And so I go to the event, and, we're talking about stuff. And, at the time, I went through a really challenging time during my pregnancy, and I sat down, my friend hooked me up. I got to sit in the front row, and I turned to this woman before we start, and she's like, oh, tell me about yourself. And there I was like telling this story again. And it was almost like I had this like out of body experience where I was just like, oh, seriously? Like, can we stop talking about this? Like, this is so boring. Like, I'm tired of this being my story. And I just realized that I was stuck in this story and I couldn't get over that story. And I realized that, part of that story was, me and my husband went through a really challenging time financially. He lost his business. And when I got pregnant, I ended up losing my job, and we ended up losing our house. And, there was a lot of like family strife because I wanted to have a home birth and my parents were like not cool with that. So there was a lot of challenges there. And my grandma passed away, and I ended up, in the hospital on bed rest at 35 weeks. So, that was like a 6-month time span of my life. And I was like kind of stuck in that story. And, through that, like, losing our house and my husband losing his company, like we were going through a challenging time. And I realized that I was so off center from this experience that I had, and like, just being disconnected with my husband, that like I was never going to succeed till I fixed this stuff. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh, wow, like business really has nothing to do with someone buying something from me. I'm like, it has everything to do with me, like being centered and aligned and really clear on what my mission is that I want to bring forth, and clearing out stuff out inside of me so that I can really bring that forth. And that was just such a powerful turning point for me.
Yeah, that's exquisite. And I can totally relate to that, because obviously, I mean, I'm on my own journey to start to do my own coaching business. And I thought, I don't know, I suppose at the beginning I kind of thought, is that you can just go on the online and say you're a coach and you can charge $50 an hour or whatever and just get clients. But that, I mean, even if that were, it wouldn't be authentic, but it just doesn't seem to happen that way. It's like, for me, it's been such a transformational experience. And I've realized it, like what you said, for me, it's been an experience of getting to know yourself on a much deeper level. And until you do that, you simply just won't put that energy out. But it's, in a way, it's, even though it takes time and it's challenging and it can be intense, it's a wonderful experience as well. And the longer it takes and the deeper you go, I think the bigger the rewards will be in the end. So that's kind of been my experience of it anyway.
Exactly. And you can never take anyone where you haven't been yourself. So the more that you grow, the more transformation you can create in other people.
Yeah. Awesome. So could you talk a little bit about like the process of attracting like dream clients, and I suppose, again, this is kind of just a natural result of becoming clear on who you are, but I think this is another big thing where people think that they don't realize that they have a tremendous amount of power over who it is that you actually attract and end up working with.
Yeah, well, Tony Robbins always says where where focus goes, energy grows, something like that. So, it's kind of like putting in your order at the restaurant. If you go and you're like, yeah, so can I get some sort of like protein and maybe a vegetable? They're like, well, what do you want exactly? Like, do you want sauce on that? Like, do you want chicken? Do you want steak? Like, we don't really know what to bring out for you. You know, we have all these options. What would you like? So, you know, that's confusing, and you're probably not going to get exactly what you want because you weren't clear on what you wanted to order. So when you do that, you know, work to figure out who, and, you know, there's like kind of the inner, the outer when you're thinking about your quote unquote dream client is, you know, a lot of times people come to me and they think about like who they should be helping. And I always ask like, well, who do you really want to work with? Right? It's like, you know, you spend so much of your life in your business and working with these clients. And like, if you think that you should be helping this, you know, type of person or type of business or whatever, and you don't really like it, like, well, that's not fun, right? So, you know, who do you want to be spending time with? Who lights you up? Who do you connect with? How do you feel like you could really, you know, create the biggest impact? So I think that, you know, that's kind of a good question to start with. You know, like I had a woman who she was like, well, you know, maybe I should help like, you know, and it's like a delicate balance because, you know, if you want to help, you know, a certain type of, you know, like a demographic of, you know, like a 25-year-old and, you know, whatever your product or service is, like is really more geared towards someone who's middle-aged, like you kind of have to find that balance. But I think it's always very important to think about, like to constantly be checking in with who do you want to be helping? And, you know, and think about, well, what is it that you want to bring forth and who can you serve best with that? And then getting like as specific as possible. Like, for example, I'm working with a couple of health and fitness coaches right now. And one, you know, wants to, you know, and on the outside, they'd be like, oh, I'm a health and fitness coach. So it's like, okay, cool. How would you differentiate between those two people? You know, like, how would you know which one that you actually want to work with? But through the deep dive with each of them, you know, one of them wants to help moms. And for her, it's much more about like actual weight loss and, you know, like helping people free themselves away from judgment on themselves and others. And, you know, really gearing her, you know, her program down that route. And then, you know, figuring out like, well, what is your messaging going to be to back up what this transformation is that you're creating? And then we were just in the process of starting to plan her photo shoot and like create her visual framework. So, you know, thinking about like, okay, well, if this is what you're offering and this is what you're talking about, how can we back that up with the imagery so that we can create a custom library of images for you that speak to everything? And so everything's aligned. Like once you're rolling, you don't have to be like searching for images. You don't have to be like, what am I going to share? It's like, no, we've mapped out like, what is your content that makes sense with your offer? And then we've created images that, you know, bring the content forth. So, and then, you know, another client, she wants to focus more on like high level professionals and like help them with like functional fitness and, you know, macros, and to go really down like sort of the macro nutrition route and like flexible dieting. And so it's much more about like self-worth and confidence. So as you can see, when you go like down the rabbit hole, on the very surface, they're health and fitness coaches. But when you really break down what it is that they want to bring forth into the world, what their mission is, what their vision is, and who they want to work with and what this transformation is, I mean, it's totally different markets. You know, one wants to help, you know, sort of middle-aged moms, and one wants to help, you know, probably like 30 something, you know, very professional, powerful women that are, you know, high-level executives. And then the actual process is very different. So when you get clear on that, you can start to chip away. It's like, you know, Michelangelo would like, you know, chip away and make these sculptures and these art pieces, and you're chipping away, creating this form of, you know, this is my dream client. And then I want to specify even further this way. And, you know, and then you think about like, you know, when I talk about the experience, like the way that you deliver the information, like for example, with the moms, you know, maybe because, you know, sometimes moms can feel kind of isolated if they're like, you know, kind of in the kid world, you know, maybe doing some sort of video call or like a group Zoom or something would be beneficial, or like, getting all your clients together once a month to, have a guest speaker if you're doing a lot of one-on-one clients. And then with, the high powered professional woman who's like in meetings all day and traveling all the time, like she might not have time for that. So like sending her, text messages, like signing up for a service that delivers text messages that just kind of like little reminders to keep her on track. Just knowing who you're speaking to and what methods you can use to help them is going to be so powerful, because serving the same thing doesn't make sense.
That's incredible. Gold mine of information there. Yeah, that's awesome. So in terms of like the process of like someone who comes to work with you, I mean, obviously there's different, do people always come to you like at the same stage of development? Like I know you mentioned there about the deep dive. I mean, I suppose that's the critical first step, isn't it? And until you have that in place, then nothing else will stack very well on top of that. So is that kind of the first step that you always take with your clients, or is there people that come to you at further stages in the development?
Well, I think, it depends on, I think there's always mindset work that can be done no matter where you are in your business. It's just like different challenges that come up. But as I've grown, and like I've worked with a lot of healers, a lot of coaches, like as I've grown, I've sort of seen what was keeping me stuck and like learned different exercises and tools. And like, I'm in like at least one or two books. I have like an audio going every day. Like, I'm always like, I'm sometimes watching YouTube videos. I'm watching at least one course at all times. Like I always like taking in information and learning. So that allows me to just like give more to my clients, because, I'm able to see from a grander scale and know how to guide them based on, their personality or what their vision is, or, what they're ready for. Like, it's taken me like years to be like even remotely ready to get on video. So like, I'm like at the cusp, and it's happening. So if somebody wants to go that road, I'm like, I have all these resources, like physical ones, and then just like ways in my head I can help them. But, really getting clear on that, I did a little bit in the beginning when I first started, but through my growth and then also just kind of seeing what my clients needed, I was like, I have to start with this. And I realized that like time management and scheduling is super important. And, like I've become a time ninja because I have so many things going on at any given time. So I've created like a really amazing system for tracking things and like getting a lot done in a day, and knowing like what you can farm out and stuff like that. So I was going to add that in to, I teach that a little bit to my clients, but I'm going to actually like put that into a course so people can, learn that system if they want to. Because I think the mindset is super key, but then also time awareness, time ownership and responsibility, and then just some sort of like practical guidance of how to manage your time is so key, because sometimes people have these like huge dreams and goals, but they don't know how to actually execute it. So I think giving them some, help of like, how do you carve out that time to implement this stuff? And then how do you break stuff down so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming is really key. So like, those are kind of the two beginning pieces that I talk about, because I feel like without that, it just, our work doesn't succeed as quickly. And then it's a lot of, what is that discovery of that inner piece of your brand, and I call it like your solid brand foundation. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And, we spend a lot of time, wordsmithing stuff, and, like looking up specific words. What does that mean? As when we're writing their mission statement and their vision statement. And, once we've got that really clear, then we work together and we create a mood board. And to me, I feel like that's really the bridge from the inner to the outer, because I see what they're naturally drawn to. And then I know how to take those images and run with it and basically like use them to kind of figure out what the graphics could potentially look like. How it's like a starting point, right? Like we figure out what their colors are going to be. And I've started tying the colors into the actual style, like wardrobe style too, because I think your colors have to be harmonious with your aesthetic and with each other, but also with what you look good in. Because, if you look good in these colors, you can, buy shirts in those colors and wear them around if you're doing a live or taking like a selfie to put on Instagram. So you make it easier just to be on brand without having to like think so hard. And then, build out the photo shoot. And then, I noticed that, we kind of would finish up and then they would have all these assets and have all this clarity and they were left to kind of, implement that into the website. And I noticed that sometimes that was more challenging for my clients. So I've actually brought in a website designer to my team. And I'm working on, bringing a copywriter in potentially if people want to work with that, and a stylist, like even on my mid-level package, because I want to really, remove as many of the pain points as I possibly can and help people really get that, finished product, and, that I can oversee it and, and guide as needed and, really creative direct it, as opposed to like doing all this work. And then it's like, now you have to go out and implement it. And, either they just like kind of lose the mojo and they don't implement it, or they, are super overwhelmed, or they try and DIY it and they don't necessarily have that skill set. So I'm going to be, I'm just like I just found these team members. So I have to kind of revamp things to really help people with that. But I think you asked earlier, like, where do people go wrong? And I think I didn't answer that at that time. One thing that I know from personal experience that I did wrong many times is, and I see this with a lot of beginners in like Facebook groups and, people that are in my Facebook group or commenting, and they're like, oh, I'm starting a business. Like, I made a logo. Can you guys check out my logo? And I'm like, why are you making a logo? like stop. And like people even come to me and they're like, I'm going to make my website. Like there was one client that I worked with last fall and we were talking and she's like, yeah, I just don't know if I should work with you or go and make my website. And I was like, look, ultimately, like, what's best. And, if you want to, design your website, I know, I'm worked with some of the most talented people in the entertainment industry. Like, I'm happy to give you some referrals and I want you to feel good about your decision. I was like, but let me ask you this. What are you going to put on your website? Like, what is the point of your website? What assets do you have to put on your website? What copy are you putting on your website? Like, you have to do all that work. Your website designer is not doing that. Like, you need to get clear on who you are, what you're offering, what you're bringing to the world, what you want to look and feel like. You've got to write your copy, or you have to hire someone to write your copy, and you have to tell them what you want them to write. Like, you can't just be like, can you go write my copy? And they're like, well, what do you want me to do? Right? So it's like, you have to like, man the helm of all this stuff. And you can't, like, if you just, and I see people just like throw up a website and like, it's just a hodgepodge. It doesn't make sense. Like, the copy's all over the place. There's no strategy to how they convey the information. They're using stock photos, and like, there's some good stock photos out there, but like, I don't know, just for me, I go to people's sites and I'm like, dude, what? Like, how much are you charging? And you're using stock photos? Like, for reals? Like, come on. I think we can invest in a nice photo shoot at this point in your business. And even if you're a beginner, you can still make it work for your budget. Like, you don't have to be a 7-figure earner to have a nice photo shoot, right? You just scale it to wherever you are in your business. So I see that as like a huge, sort of misstep, is thinking like, oh, I'm going to go make a logo and make my website. And I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know what's supposed to be in that. So when you kind of take a step back and like, don't get me wrong, I'm like super pumped and like, I want to do stuff now all the time. And the visual stuff is super fun. And that's always what I would do when I started a business. And I never did this deep dive work, which is why I'm so passionate about it now. And I would just run around in circles and I was like, well, who am I? What am I serving? Like, I don't know what kind of client it is. Like, should I be charging this or this? And like, and I always just felt uncertain and, plagued with self-doubt because I didn't do that deep work to gain the clarity, to gain the confidence, to know like, this is who I am. This is what I have to bring to the table. And this is the value I'm bringing. And this is what my price points are. And I feel good about that. And if you want to work with me, great. And if you don't, I'm happy to offer a referral, or you can find someone that's a better fit for you.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, definitely. I can understand that about especially about pricing and stuff like that. I mean, when you really, I suppose if you're not really connected to who you are and what you're doing, and then you're trying to ask people for money, it's going to come through very quickly that you're not sure to the person you're trying to enroll. I suppose it's when you get into that place of absolute clarity and how much you want to charge and what it is you're offering. I suppose you just become this like, it just becomes unshakable really, and then it's just like there and then if they're fit to work with you, and if they're not, like you said, you just give them a referral. But yeah, I suppose it's getting to that point where you're just absolutely solid in what you're selling and just being unshakable in it, really.
Yeah. And I mean, price is like, an interesting thing because ultimately you have to be congruent with what you're charging. And, over the last, like, I don't know, I guess a year and a half now, like one of my huge limiting beliefs was I can't afford it. And I was like, I lost my house. Like, I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done with this story. Like, I'm rewriting the script. We're doing a new version. We're casting new actors. Like, I'm over it. This is done. So, I really have done a lot of deep diving into money mindset. And, I took like Amanda Francis's money mentality course. I just finished Catherine Zankina Manifestation Babes Rich Babe Academy. I just signed up for some manifestation email course that I need to like block into my calendar. And I'm just like, this is my like main focus. I listen to like money hypnosis every day. I've been doing an abundance challenge. It's called The Abundance Book. I don't remember the author's name, but I got turned on to it from a James Wedmore podcast. And I was like, and he's like, yeah, it's super. It's this tiny little book and you do this 40-day challenge and it teaches you about money. And I was like listening, I'm like on Amazon. I'm like, I find it. I'm like, order, one click, send to my house now, bring the drone. And so I did like 2 rounds on my own. And, my husband, everyone has their own money issues. And like, we had this business idea we were working on that just like did not work the way that we wanted to. And we lost, more money that was comfortable. And, and I was like, look, like I've helped you with a lot of stuff, but ultimately I really feel like it's your money mindset that is blocking you from a lot of things. And I was just like, I would invite you to try this little book. I was like, I will give you my book and you can go and do this. So I've seen the transformation in him because I think, I'm on round 6. So I think I think we're on round 2 or 3 together. I think we just started the 3rd round together. And just like having him kind of like enter into this world has been so powerful because now we can speak the same language as opposed to him kind of looking at me like, girlfriend's cray. Like, what is she talking about? Like, she's rambling about manifestation and energy and all this stuff. And like, okay, that's nice, honey. Like, I'm going to go off over here and do this. But now we can speak on the same page and it opens up like the powerful level between the two of us. So, I think working on that and understanding what your relationship is with money. And, it's tied in with self-worth and like, what do you believe is possible? And, so I do a lot of that work now too with my clients because I've seen how powerful it is with me. And I think no matter where you are in your business, like there's always that, like, can I like up level my package and prices to that, space? And I have it too. My coach works on it with me. I'm like, why would people pay for that? She's like, girlfriend, you know what you're doing. Like, trust me, like you could charge more. I was like, okay, I'm confident. And so, I think that that's really powerful to get clear on. And then also just know that, start where you're at. Like, I have one client and I know she can charge like 3 times more than she's charging right now, but she doesn't feel good about it yet. So I'm like, start where you are, feel good, gain the confidence that you know what you're doing, and then, see where you vibrate with your prices and then up level, because you're going to attract a different client who's willing to make that investment. And it's all a journey and a process, right? It's like if you're like, oh, I'm going to charge $10,000 for my package, and you started like 3 months ago, it's like, what? Like you may want to like, does that price resonate with you? Do you believe that that's possible? Do you believe that you're bringing that value? Like maybe you do, and that's awesome. But if you don't, like you're not going to believe it. So you're going to provoke objections because you don't believe it. And like I said before, you're going to mirror your beliefs in the external world. And that's what's going to come through for you.
Yeah. Incredible. Sounds like then, I mean, through, as a coach and as a business strategist, then you're really delivering the whole package. And obviously it's just listening to what you've talked about. It's so much more than just visuals and stuff. It's an incredible experience. So what kind of services do you offer, and then do you offer like different level services? I mean, I know you do one-on-one, and what kind of what are the services that you provide? What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I first started with my signature program, Ignite Your Soul Brand, and that's a one-on-one program. And I'm looking to potentially create that as a group program, like over, maybe in the summer. And I may step away from one-on-one coaching so that I can focus my one-on-one time on my VIP clients. I'm just kind of like playing with that idea. But right now I have my Ignite Your Soul Brand. And that's really for, an entrepreneur who's had some clients under their belt, whether it's like a couple or 5 or 10 or something, that they've got some structure to their business down. They probably figured a lot of this out on their own, and like they know that they want it and it's like kind of working, but they're just like, I don't really have the expertise to take it to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to waste the time trying to figure it out on my own. So I want to hire an expert. And so that, a lot of times people will come to me and they're just like, I could spend like a year doing this, or I could hire you and like be like fully like set up in 3 months. And I was like, that's probably a good idea, but it's totally up to you. So that's, and then through that process, like I noticed that, there was like a lot of the people in my Facebook group are really new entrepreneurs. And I have like a questionnaire when they come in. So I was like, what is it that people really need? Right? Like, I think I know what people need and I know what I'd like to create, but is that what people really need? So I'm like, I want to kind of take, surveys and study and ask questions, because if there's a way that I can deliver information that is more beneficial, I'm cool with that. Like, I don't want to make something just to make something that nobody cares about. Like, that's stupid. So then I realized that like, there's a lot of really new entrepreneurs that have like no idea what to do. And they're so overwhelmed. So I've created like a kind of a self-paced, it's designed to be done in 2 months, because, I believe in massive action. And so I've created it in that way, where you can plug in, and I take you through, similar processes that I take some of my one-on-one clients, but you don't have like, I'm not there to like, bounce ideas off of and give you feedback, but it really gives you that, foundational piece so that you can, go through and create like that first iteration of your brand that you feel good about and, you feel confident about, and, you're going to grow and you're going to evolve and you're going to invest more in your business later down the road. But at least you show up and you feel good about what you're putting out there from the very beginning. And you position yourself at a more professional level straight out the gate, so people take you seriously much faster versus like being cheap and you're like, I'm not going to invest in myself. I'm going to do everything myself. And then you like hodgepodge it, you put it out there. And then like from a third person perspective, someone's watching you and they're like, oh yeah, Sally started a business. That's cool. Like, oh, kind of looks mildly hot messish. Like, what exactly is she doing? How much is she charging? Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I'll catch you next year, right? Like, because I mean, I look around and I see people and I'm just like, what? Like, yeah, how much do you want to charge? Like, your website's a mess. Your photos are a mess. Like, your copy doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just come from a world of advertising where it's like, the standards are super high and that's just what I'm used to. So I just feel like you should put your best foot forward if, like, because you're showing me what it is that I'm getting, right? So I'm like, like I love going to people's sites. Like people are like, oh, I'm a branding expert too. And I go to their Instagram and I'm like, what? Like your Instagram is a hot mess. Like why would I ever trust you with my visual like representation when yours is not what I want to emulate? Like, so I really believe you have to practice what you preach. And if you want to deliver something to people, like you know, like you want to put on your best clothes, right? Like show up, look professional, you know, put your best foot forward. So I really want to help those newbies because, you know, like I have this background and I'm just naturally an artist and a graphic designer, a photographer, and, you know, composition and colors. It's always just come naturally to me. So I've been able to do it on my own, but I know that's not something that really comes natural to other people. So if I can help them, give them a guide, you know, that's really powerful. And then, you know, I've seen, so that's, you know, for like super newbies, like they could be, you know, straight out the gate or like 6 months in, 3 months in, but, you know, they're just kind of getting going. And instead of like making this mess that they have to clean up later, like start right in the front end and then just keep evolving. So that's sort of the intention behind that. And then I just recently launched a VIP package for, you know, a 6 to 7 figure entrepreneur who, you know, has kind of evolved through those 2 previous stages. And, you know, they've maybe hired other people. They've had like, you know, at least one photo shoot, you know, maybe they've done the photo shoots themselves. Like the photos look okay, but they're not necessarily on brand, or like there's like different varieties of, you know, there's different shoots going on. So like they don't totally match, you know, their website, like it's better than like, you know, totally hacked together, but they're like, they've created this extreme level of success, but their visuals don't mirror that. So they, you know, I really want to, and they're very clear on their brand. So there's not the need to do so much discovery work around it. Like I can do a little bit, but it's not really geared towards that. It's really for someone who like knows what they're doing. They've got either like a full on empire or like the empire in the making. And they're really ready to go that next level and have that like high production value. And then I work with them to execute that high-end photo shoot that really takes their brand vision and brings it to life. And I just did a photo shoot for my client Manifestation Babe over the weekend. And, you know, this was like, you know, amazing. We did 2 days, like I had a full team and it was so awesome. And so I want to be able to help those high level entrepreneurs because, you know, a lot of times you're like, oh, I want to do a photo shoot. But then you think about like, well, then I got to coordinate everything and I got to find all these people to do all this stuff for me. And then, you know, if you put all that stuff together yourself, like if you don't have experience doing it, you're not sure whether all the pieces fit together. You're stressed out about like, you know, producing your own shoot basically. And then the day of, you've got all these details that you're keeping track of. You're like, does my makeup look right? Like, am I in the right pose? Does this cover that? So your brain is like flooded with all of these logistical things and you're not present. So it shows up in your energy in those photos that you're like, you've got this like constricted energy because you have so much going on. So, you know, I've, you know, done photo shoots with celebrities. I've done photo shoots with brands. I've done photo shoots for small businesses. I've done photo shoots for models, for portraits, like, you know, all across the board. And I love it. It's super fun for me. And I'm really good at like spotting talent, putting together a team. And I just, you know, I let my team run with it. Like I hold the vision and then I give people freedom within the vision because I think that then everybody has fun and has that like ownership and expression. And then, you know, we just like over the weekend, we had so much fun. You know, I did so much pre-prep, you know, with all the team members. Everything was like buttoned down. I had the whole plan. I had the shoot flow. Like I paired all the outfits with the different locations. We figured out hair and makeup. We ordered the outfits based on the hair and makeup. We paired the outfits to the different locations. We had a set designer who spruced everything up and brought all these props and like kind of, you know, brought everything to a new level. Even though we rented the space that was beautiful, we really brought in props to like speak to the brand. And, you know, it just was like so gorgeous and over the top. And like, it's just going to skyrocket Catherine's brand to a whole new level. And now the visuals that she's going to bring out mirror her level of success. And so, you know, because she's grown so fast. So now there's this congruency within this new level of growth to take her even further. So I'm so excited. And, you know, it's a lot of time and energy to put in that, you know, that much detail oriented focus, which I love. And just to offload that from these, you know, high level entrepreneurs, because it's probably not their zone of genius and there is a lot involved. And I think when people take the attitude of like, oh, it's super easy. I'm just going to hire a photographer and like go off over there. And yeah, you can just hire a photographer and do it. But I really believe like when you have that creative direction involved in it, one, like I produce and creative direct. So like I have both going. And so I'm able to like man the logistics as well as the creative direction, beyond just doing one or the other. So you get two in one, which is like nice. But a lot of times photographers, depending on their skill level, like if you're hiring a commercial photographer, like they're going to be thousands of dollars, right? Which you could do. But even then, like on commercial shoots, there's always the creative director there because the photographer is in charge of the lighting and in charge of, getting the right shot. Like everyone needs to have their role so that they can be really focused on it and have their eyes on that one thing because there's so many moving parts. So to have to have me there to be able to like oversee the whole thing, creative direct the whole thing. Like I can look at a shot and like know how to frame it. And like we did this one thing in the kitchen and like we had a pink laptop on one side and we had this like pink board in the other. And I looked in the back of the camera and I was like, we got to move the laptop because the shapes aren't balanced within the frame. So I can see that stuff and I just move it. And then I go over and I'm like, hey, what's going on, makeup artist? Do you have any questions? So like I can kind of flutter around the whole set and just like keep everything moving and allow Catherine to have that space to not have to worry about anything. She just has to show up, have a good time, put on pretty clothes, and just like show up and be herself and bring that energy forth that she wants to bring to her audience.
Wow. Amazing. I think all of that, what she just said, is the perfect reason why it's worth investing in an expert to cut the to speed up the progression, basically, because it's a lot of work to try and do that yourself. So to work with someone like you would be a huge accelerator. So that's absolutely awesome. So would you like then, it'd be great if you could share with the listeners how they can find out more about you and your work and working with you.
For sure. So, my website is jordanduvall.com. And then my social handles are Ignite Your Soul. It's Ignite Your Soul brand at Facebook and then also at Instagram. And then I have a Facebook group as well, which is Ignite Your Soul brand. All of those are great ways. I mean, Instagram is kind of my baby. Like I do Facebook, but like I put a lot of my focus into Instagram. What I feel like it's a really good representation as a brand strategist for people to see that visual aesthetic that I bring forth. And I just think it's more fun and I like the stories and stuff. So, I have Facebook, but that's probably the best place to find me. And then, my Facebook group is a good place. And then, you can go to the Work With Me page on my website and you can check out the details for, sort of the beginner level, the medium level, and then the high end level. And, those are, depending on your point in business and what your needs are, those are, really the best ways to ways in to work together.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I covered some really awesome information. So just thank you for coming on, sharing all your awesome wisdom and knowledge with the listeners today.
Wonderful. Well, it was so much fun to chat this morning. And thank you so much, Chris, for having me on. And, I look forward to seeing your business grow and blossom. And, not going to lie, super jealous of your beautiful countryside view.
Yeah.
I'll be looking at stucco buildings and strip malls today.
It is wonderful.
Yeah, I know. God, countryside in England, there's nothing more beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So that is all for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you are looking to elevate and ignite your brand, then definitely be sure to check out Jordan's work on the web, and I'll put links to her website and social media in the show notes so you can check that out as well. So thank you all so much for listening, and I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bye bye.